My name is Mike Foote. I'm representing the Mainland Community Coalition, abbreviated as FCC. And we're made up of 4 different grassroots community groups. That's the Black Parents United Foundation, Greenhouse Connection Center, Mothers Out Front, and Mountain Mamas. And collectively, through the organization's memberships that are part of the coalition, we have folks that live in all 18 of the GEMM2 locations around the state. The purpose of our coalition is to make sure that these grassroots community groups have a seat at the table during these deliberations and that their voices are elevated during these discussions, including at this presentation. And I'll tell you that the voices in these communities, and the voices in this coalition are frustrated. They're frustrated because their communities have been heavily polluted for years, for decades even, by many sources. Some of the communities have been referred to as sacrifice zones for the rest of the state of Colorado. They're frustrated that they've suffered and continue to suffer immense harm from this pollution. And they see that business as usual seems to continue despite their speaking up in different forums. Their experience is that people often do listen to what they have to say, but in the end don't really make too many real changes as a result. It's kind of like their opinion has been welcome, their voices have been heard, and the health and well-being of those communities seem to be important. But the line between listening and acting seems to be drawn at whether some facilities might have to cut into their profit margins to comply with the new regulation. Now, the legislature did listen and did actually act in 2021 when it passed the Environmental Justice Act. But the communities have to count on you, the commissioners, in order to make sure real change occurs as was intended by the legislators when they passed the act. The communities want the commission to follow the law as intended by the legislature and make sure that disproportionately impacted communities are protected and that co-pollutant reductions are prioritized, not just in word, but in deed. I'm going to highlight the portion of the Environmental Justice Act that we're most focused on and talk about that for just a little bit, but the bulk of this presentation will be taken up by coalition community members. It's important that their perspectives are put front and center here in this presentation.
Hi, my name is Don Angel Diaz. I live in the Globeville community, which is about 2 miles from the Suncor plant. I am the great-granddaughter of Josephine, Ramona, Augustine, Stella, John, Guadalupe, and Francisco. I am the granddaughter of Evan, Tony, Irene, and Augustine Jr. I am the daughter of Donald and Gloria. I am the mother of 5 children and the wife of my husband. I would like to thank you for holding space for us to speak our truths and life as residents near Suncor. I come before you today and ask that your minds and hearts be open to hear our voices as we ask you to correct your wrongs. I ask today that there are no longer any barriers that will stop you from reducing the pollution that you are putting into our communities. When I first became aware that my community had the worst air quality in all of the nation, I had questions for my father. I asked him, why would you buy a house in this neighborhood? He said he wanted to be close to his and my mom's family. Then I asked him, did you know we had the worst air quality? He said no. I found out later that this isn't something realtors share to potential buyers. This past week I had 2 interactions with 2 boys, one being my son. One boy was telling his story about how his nose bleeds. He talked about how him and his friends have a hard time breathing while playing soccer. He started to cry. I believe it's because he is in fear that he could die from these toxins. The next day my son was at football practice. He came to the sideline crying. I asked him if he was hurt. He said no. I said, well, what are you crying for? He said, I can't breathe. I can't stop or my coach won't let me play. I gave him his inhaler with the hope that this will hold him off till we can go indoors. This is where it became personal for me. I wonder how different life would be if I didn't live near Suncor. Well, my kids wouldn't need to get breathing treatments before they went out to go and play. We wouldn't need inhalers within arm's reach, and we wouldn't have to take allergy medicine daily.
You can do a quick Google search to see the millions and billions being made by these corporations. On top of Suncor's $2.4 million a day at Commerce City alone, they have recently pulled out of the renewables business and have doubled down on tar sands and oil-centered strategies. This is a slap in the face to neighboring communities, this process, and the planet. Suncor is a Canadian company, so a lot of the financial benefit doesn't even stay in this country. Let's talk about emissions on the side. Suncor's pollution is 951,000. You can add up the next 7 emitters and it doesn't even total what Suncor is doing to our state and our communities. I work and live in the community surrounding Suncor. Residents are begging for help, protections, accountability, enforcement, and action. They voice that industry air quality data says everything is fine, but this does not match with the community's lived experience. Industry and state data does not match with the community data of Palti Bondo. There continues to be a disconnect. What else are we supposed to do? The people have lost their faith and trust that government will protect them. Given the health impacts residents face and continued patterns of polluting and government inaction, they feel like their voices and pleas for help, their lives, and their children's health does not matter to you. Many of the GEMM2 companies have plenty of money to make improvements. From my time working in industry, I know that these corporations will not do better unless you make them do so. Every day things get harder in DICs. This rule stems from the EJ Act to do less harms. Is this rule doing that? We want to talk about meaningful participation. We had to overcome so many barriers to be here today. We had to win 2 grants. The juggling of childcare for meetings and things like that. I still got to run across town to get another child. And we're just barely covering basic costs and we get paid close to nothing to be here today. We are here for the good of the future, not for greed. When I went out to build this coalition, I said I have to be honest, I don't think we're here for an EJ win. We're here to stop the hemorrhaging because pollution and some industry are draining the life from our communities and steamrolling them.
When we'll be taken seriously. Environmental racism is nothing new for our communities, right? It's been happening for decades in marginalized communities like mine. Our communities have carried the burden. Due to the health impacts like migraines and bloody noses, my children's education has even been impacted. Missing days of school, work because of hospitalizations, threats of truancy have been a challenge for me as a single mother throughout their education. For decades, my family and neighbors have suffered great health impacts from leukemia, lupus, heart disease, cancer, asthma, diabetes, migraines, bloody noses, just to name a few. My grandmother died of leukemia in 2018. My great-grandmother died of cancer in 79. And currently, both my aunt and uncle are fighting cancer. They're still young. Most recently, in August, I lost a family member to brain disease. She was 52. And 2 neighbors to cancer, 48 and 63 years old. 2 funerals in 1 week. It has become normal for our communities, early deaths. While the industry continues to make billions, and so we will continue to suffer and die. This is environmental injustice. Colorado has made bold climate legislation in the past few years, becoming an example for the nation. The EJ Act is supposed to protect us, the people, the impacted communities, not give industry a free ride and backdoor deals. We must take a giant leap forward and bring forth true justice. No baby steps here. Industry has had enough time to bank from human misery. It's time to enforce current legislation to its fullest potential, not adding to the environmental injustice by watering it down with rules that favor the polluters. I know many are here just to protect their paychecks. I am trying to save lives here. Accountability matters. Environmental justice to me looks like this. Strongest enforcement. Self-regulation doesn't work. Restorative justice. Reparations, a full just transition beginning in communities like mine. Health assessment, access to clean energy, solar, electrification. These should be accessible as a flu shot or a COVID vaccine. Language justice, talk to the people, talk to us. Food justice, permanent housing, mass education, and awareness. Environmental justice is climate justice. We are no longer in a global world, but a global boiling. And it's horrifying to me that we must continue to fight our own governments for basic human needs such as clean water and air. Time is running out. The future is now. 2030 is just days away. And with rules like these, Colorado, we will continue to kick the can down the road until it's too late.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I know we're getting close to the end of our time. I just wanted to highlight, what you've heard is the reason why the on-site reductions are so important in this rule. Please prioritize the on-site reductions. Please follow the statute. And please make sure that these communities can get relief much sooner rather than later. Thank you.